question leaves a trail. Every story hides a clue. Truth is waiting in the silence. Come take the dive, I'll walk with you. Maine Mirror, where truth comes into view.
Imagine trying to balance a $22 million, 49,000 square foot luxury condo complex right on top of an active storefront.
Yeah, and doing it without stopping a single customer from walking in to buy their morning coffee.
Right. I mean, you are dealing with heavy machinery, shifting structural loads, and just years of noise, all while the lifeblood of a historic downtown continues to pulse right beneath the floorboards.
It is an absolute engineering and honestly political high-wire act.
It really is. And that is exactly what is currently proposed for downtown Rockland, Maine. So welcome to the Deep Dive.
Thanks for being here.
Today, we are opening up a massive stack of municipal documents, some great local reporting from the Maine Mirror, and architectural pre-applications to examine a project that could fundamentally redefine a coastal community.
And we're looking at this through the lens of two experienced Maine journalists sitting down with you to map out exactly what happens when a town faces the inevitable pressure of modern development.
Because Rockland is currently standing at a very familiar crossroads, right?
Oh, absolutely. It is a community fiercely dedicated to protecting that walkable, historic, working waterfront character. I mean, that is what makes the Maine coast so valuable.
Yeah, but simultaneously, the city is navigating a severe housing shortage, shifting zoning laws, and just the plain economic necessity of growth.
And the tension between those two realities is palpable in literally every page of the documents we are reviewing today.
So our mission for this deep dive is strict, impartial journalism. We have a specific proposal on the table from a group called Beacon Enterprises LLC, and it's for a property located at One Park Drive.
Which is prime real estate.
Exactly. And we are going to separate the hard, verified facts from the rumors. We will outline what is known, isolate the critical questions that still need answering.
And most importantly, we are going to decode the municipal planning board process.
Yes, because if you live in any town facing large-scale development, understanding the nuts and bolts of local government is really the only way you can effectively engage with the future of your own neighborhood.
Right. But to maintain that journalistic standard, we really have to establish our boundaries up front.
Definitely. Yeah.
We are not advocating for this $22 million development, nor are we taking a position against it. We are impartially reporting the contents of the municipal records and the local press.
The broader political debates regarding, housing policies, zoning reform, and economic strategies, those belong to the voters and the residents.
Exactly. Our objective is just to extract the verified data, explain the underlying mechanics of how these developments work, and give you the analytical tools to participate meaningfully in your local civic process.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What struck me immediately reading through the Beacon Enterprises LLC pre-application isn't just the sheer scale of the new building, it's the foundation they are using.
Yeah, the location itself is a huge factor here.
Right. It's One Park Drive, which is just central. It's adjacent to Harbor Park. It borders the police department, and it has this immediate, unobstructed proximity to the waterfront.
It is the heart of downtown.
But they aren't proposing an empty lot build, which is what you'd expect. They're proposing a substantial expansion of the existing structure.
Which is wild. They're essentially dropping a high-rise on top of a living, breathing commercial space.
Are we just slapping an apartment complex on top of a store? Structurally, how does that even work?
Well, the scope of that expansion is what makes this a focal point for the city. The developers intend to add 26 residential condominium units to this site.
26 units.
Yeah. And according to the project documents submitted to the planning board, achieving that requires adding approximately 49,340 square feet of new construction.
Wow. That is a massive addition.
It is. The estimated cost of this project sits between $16 million and $22 million, with an anticipated construction timeline of roughly 2 years.
2 years of building on top of a business. It's like a hermit crab finding a new, much larger and much more expensive shell, right?
That is actually a great analogy. Retaining the commercial space on the lower level while building upward introduces just a staggering level of architectural complexity.
Because you are asking a lower-level commercial base to suddenly carry the vertical load of a multi-story tower.
Exactly. You can't just drop 49,000 square feet of concrete, steel, drywall, and glass onto a roof that wasn't originally engineered for that specific burden.
Right, that would be a disaster.
Yeah.
So it requires a massive internal integration process.
Yeah, they will likely have to drive new steel columns down through the existing commercial footprint to reinforce the foundation.
All while trying to keep the street-level presence intact.
And the complexity extends far beyond just the structural load. Think about the utilities.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that.
You are adding 26 high-end residential units, which means 26 new kitchens, perhaps 50 new bathrooms, and highly demanding HVAC systems.
So all of those new water lines, sewer laterals, and electrical conduits have to be spliced into the existing municipal infrastructure.
Yes, routed down through the occupied commercial floor and connected to the grid. It is an intricate, highly disruptive engineering puzzle.
So why do it? Why not just tear the whole thing down and start fresh?
The decision to expand rather than demolish and rebuild from scratch is a calculated strategy. It helps maintain the building's grandfathered footprint and its established commercial presence in the downtown district.
Okay, that makes sense from a zoning perspective. But the visual impact is going to be just as dramatic as the engineering.
Oh, visually, it's a total transformation.
Looking at the conceptual descriptions submitted to the board, this isn't just a utilitarian addition. The developers are planning updated exterior architecture, extensive residential balconies, rooftop gathering areas, and specialized community spaces.
Right, they're heavily emphasizing improved energy efficiency too, which is a modern building standard.
But the result is a massive change to the waterfront's visual dynamic. You're transitioning from a lower-profile commercial block to a towering, multi-story residential complex.
And that will undeniably command attention on the Rockland skyline.
But a building doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It exists in a town. So what does this all mean for Rockland as a whole?
Well, altering the skyline of a historic downtown changes the sightlines for the entire neighborhood. It shifts the density of the block.
Yeah.
But to understand the true gravity of the One Park Drive proposal, we have to look at how it interacts with the local economy and the existing population. We need the broader context of Rockland's current housing environment.
Right. And the local reporting notes that this proposal is arriving at a critical inflection point.
It really is. Rockland voters recently supported municipal measures specifically intended to increase housing opportunities.
The city has been actively evaluating zoning changes to loosen restrictions and make future residential development more viable. The civic doors have been intentionally opened to encourage more housing stock.
Which is exactly what you do during a housing shortage.
But when you look at the specifics of a $22 million waterfront condo project, it forces you to ask how this particular type of housing actually functions within that broader economic goal.
That is the big question. Adding 26 year-round residential units directly to the downtown corridor initiates a complex economic domino effect. Well, if we estimate conservative occupancy, 26 units could bring 50 to 60 new permanent residents into a highly concentrated area.
So that immediate implication is a significant increase in year-round foot traffic.
Exactly. For local businesses, this represents a shift from seasonal reliance to sustained economic activity.
Right. These are residents who will be purchasing groceries, dining at restaurants, and utilizing local services in the dead of February, not just during the peak tourist season in July.
But the tension arises when we look closely at who those residents might actually be.
Yeah, here's where it gets really interesting. The Maine Mirror reporting includes a crucial defining detail about this project. It is not being marketed as workforce or affordable housing.
Which changes the demographic impact entirely.
Completely. If a community is passing measures to solve a severe housing crisis, but the resulting development is a multi-million-dollar luxury waterfront complex, who is actually living there?
If the market dictates the pricing for waterfront views and rooftop amenities, we are likely not housing the local teachers, nurses, or shipyard workers.
Right. We are potentially attracting high-net-worth retirees, out-of-state buyers, or remote workers.
And that demographic shift alters the fundamental fabric of the downtown. High-end, market-rate condominiums contribute significantly to the municipal tax base.
Which is good for the city's revenue, right?
Yes, providing the city with increased revenue without adding the same burden to the school system that a subdivision of single-family starter homes might.
But there is always a trade-off.
Exactly. It also accelerates gentrification pressures. It raises property values for the surrounding blocks, which can subsequently increase commercial lease rates for the very businesses that make the walkable downtown attractive in the first place.
And what if these condos don't even become primary residences? If they do end up functioning as second homes or seasonal properties for wealthy out-of-state buyers, the town doesn't just lose out on that year-round economic boost.
They get a massive infrastructure burden without the community benefit.
Yeah, if half the building is dark from November to May, the local coffee shop isn't getting that winter foot traffic. But the city still has to maintain the upgraded water lines and manage the structural density.
And that leads directly into the logistical reality of density. 26 high-end units require parking.
Oh, parking downtown. That is always a nightmare.
In an already bustling downtown commercial district, introducing the need for potentially 40 to 50 dedicated long-term residential parking spaces is a monumental challenge.
Because downtown Rockland operates on a delicate spatial economy. Every square foot of asphalt is fiercely contested by commercial delivery trucks, tourist vehicles, and local commuters.
Which is why the source material highlights several specific, highly consequential unknowns surrounding the One Park Drive proposal.
The parking geometry alone is just a massive puzzle. We don't have answers on pricing, we don't have verified data on expected seasonal versus year-round occupancy, and we have zero clarity on how the developer plans to mitigate the parking deficit.
Right, those are huge gaps in the plan right now.
It's like a Jenga tower. If you pull on the parking piece or the construction traffic piece without a solid plan, the whole block's daily routine could get very shaky.
And maybe the most pressing unknown for the immediate neighbors is the construction disruption itself.
2 years of it.
A 2-year, $22 million construction project in the center of a dense downtown is like performing open-heart surgery on a patient who is awake and walking around.
The city has to keep functioning.
Exactly. The physical realities of that timeline are daunting for adjacent business owners. Construction of this magnitude requires extensive staging areas for heavy equipment, cranes, and arterial deliveries.
It involves road closures, significant dust generation, and prolonged noise pollution.
Think about a local restaurant relying on outdoor patio seating, or a boutique relying on leisurely foot traffic. 2 years of heavy construction next door is an existential threat to their livelihood.
Furthermore, the documents leave it completely ambiguous whether the existing commercial tenants currently operating on the lower floor of One Park Drive will be temporarily displaced, permanently relocated, or somehow allowed to operate beneath an active construction zone.
Which, as we discussed, sounds incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Finally, the reporting points to the ultimate unknown, the community return on investment.
Beyond the immediate addition of 26 housing units and an expanded tax base, what tangible, long-term public benefit does this massive project provide to the residents of Rockland?
Does it include public waterfront access improvements? Does it contribute to local infrastructure funds?
We just don't know yet. And when you have a list of unknowns, this critical pricing, occupancy, parking, construction management, and public benefit, it is easy to see why rumors might start circulating in a community.
Definitely. But identifying these gaps in the information is really the cornerstone of responsible civic journalism. Highlighting the unknowns is not an act of opposition.
No, it is an analytical necessity. At this stage of development, a lack of finalized answers is entirely standard. The developer is initiating a conversation.
Our role, and the role of the residents, is to recognize what data is missing so that the community can formally request it before any binding approvals are granted.
Right. So if you are a resident listening to this and you share these exact concerns about parking logistics or construction noise or demographic shifts, where do you go to get answers?
You go to the planning board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But interacting with municipal government can feel like trying to decipher a foreign language.
It really can. Looking at the July 7, 2026 Rockland Planning Board agenda, there is an item simply listed as a pre-application for the mixed-use development at One Park Drive.
Right.
And the agenda explicitly notes that this is a general, informal discussion and explicitly states, no decision on the substance of the plan shall be made at this meeting.
Now, to a layperson, attending a meeting where no binding decisions are made sounds like an inefficient use of a Tuesday evening.
Yeah, if no decisions are being made, isn't going to this meeting just a waste of time?
It seems like it, but in the architecture of municipal development, the pre-application phase is actually the epicenter of civic influence. It's a dress rehearsal.
How so?
To understand why, we have to look at the economics of the development process itself.
I used to think a developer just drew a nice picture of a building, handed it to the city, and asked for a permit.
Oh, if only it were that simple. The formal site plan review requires an astronomical amount of technical data.
We are talking about hundreds of pages of stamped civil engineering documents, right?
Exactly. You have to hire environmental consultants to model stormwater runoff. You have to hire traffic engineers to calculate the precise turning radius of a delivery truck entering your proposed driveway.
You have to conduct photometric studies to prove your exterior lights won't blind the neighbors.
Yes. Generating those formal code-compliant blueprints costs tens and frequently hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow. So the financial risk for the developer is immense at that stage.
Immense. If they spend $150,000 engineering a massive underground parking garage and then bring that finished formal application to the planning board, only to find out the board is fundamentally opposed to subterranean excavation in that specific flood zone.
That money is entirely wasted.
Completely gone.
Okay, so that economic risk is the exact leverage the public possesses.
Yes. The pre-application meeting is the developer's risk mitigation strategy. They are bringing their conceptual drawings, their unrefined vision to the city to gauge the political and regulatory temperature before they sign the contracts with the civil engineers.
They're essentially asking the board, before we spend the capital to engineer this, are there any fatal flaws in our concept?
And because the developers have not yet sunk massive capital into finalized blueprints, the clay is still wet. The project is highly malleable.
So if residents attend the pre-application meeting and firmly, reasonably articulate that the surrounding streets mathematically cannot absorb 50 new vehicles without a dedicated off-street parking plan, the developer takes that feedback.
Exactly. They then instruct their architects to revise the concept to include parking before they spend money on the final site plan.
If you wait until the formal application phase to voice your concerns, the developer has already spent the money.
They are financially committed to their finalized design by that point, and they will fight aggressively to defend it. They'll rely on legal compliance rather than community consensus.
So the pre-application phase is when the public essentially sets the syllabus for the developer's engineers. You are dictating the specific problems they must mathematically solve in their final submission.
That is the perfect way to put it. And we don't have to rely on abstract theory to prove that public participation forces architectural changes in Rockland.
We actually have the receipts.
We do. We have the actual planning board minutes from April and June of 2026.
These documents provide a meticulous roadmap of how this specific municipal body operates, how they process public pushback, and how abstract neighborhood concerns are translated into physical engineered mandates.
By examining these past friction points, we can predict exactly how the One Park Drive proposal will be scrutinized.
Let's dive into those case studies. The minutes reveal a fascinating narrative of community friction. The first major one we see is social and operational. Let's look at the proposal brought forward by Maine Health for a property at 407 Pleasant Street.
Now, this wasn't a luxury condo. It was a proposal to add a 2,634 square foot addition to an existing building to create transitional housing.
The official designation was lodging with services.
Right. The purpose of the facility was to house adult patients who were transitioning out of a hospital ward but were not yet ready for fully independent living.
They required a supervised residential environment before reintegrating into the general population.
And from a zoning perspective, introducing a behavioral health transitional facility into a traditional residential neighborhood requires a conditional use permit.
Because the operational nature of the facility inherently impacts the surrounding properties.
Exactly. When you tell a neighborhood of single-family homes that a supervised transitional facility is moving in next door, the abutters, the residents who literally share a property line, are going to mobilize.
And the April 7th minutes show exactly that. Neighbors Brent Meservy and Deborah Grant stepped up to the microphone.
Meservy, who lives directly across the street, didn't just express vague displeasure.
No. He cited past security incidents related to similar facilities and directly demanded to know the specific operational protocols the applicant would use to guarantee the physical security of the neighboring residences.
Another neighbor pressed the board on the lack of visual screening and the height of the boundary fences.
So how did the planning board handle that?
Their response is highly indicative of their regulatory rigor. They did not dismiss the neighbors' concerns as enemyism, nor did they just rubber stamp Maine Health's application simply because it served a public good.
The share paused the approval process.
Yes. They legally required Maine Health to submit a comprehensive, detailed narrative outlining the specific operational and infrastructural mechanisms they would employ to neutralize the neighbors' concerns.
So the result was a set of hard, physical changes to the facility's operations and architecture.
Exactly. To address concerns about residents wandering the property, Maine Health had to establish a strictly designated, localized smoking area, acknowledging the behavioral realities of their patients.
They were also forced to contract out all exterior maintenance.
Right, the trash removal, mowing, snow plowing, all to ensure the property didn't visually degrade the neighborhood standard.
But the visual and physical friction was really solved through engineering. The applicant's representative, Trillium Engineering Group, was mandated to install a solid 6-foot-tall cedar fence along the new driveway boundary.
And they specifically chose cedar for its durability and complete visual obstruction, unlike a chain link fence.
They also required supplemental plantings on the development side of the fence to further soften the institutional appearance.
The board even forced Maine Health to reroute their water utility connections. They had to pull the residential and sprinkler lines from Pleasant Street rather than Park Street to prevent disruption to a specific municipal corridor.
That is the power of the process. A neighbor's fear about security and privacy was directly translated into a 6-foot wall of solid wood and legally binding operational contracts.
It's municipal immunity in action.
Okay, the second major friction point the board tackles is environmental, and nothing brings neighbors to City Hall faster than water.
Water is always a massive issue.
At the June 2nd meeting, Community Housing of Maine, or CHO, was defending their proposal for an affordable 10-unit multifamily building at 59 South Main Street.
Water mitigation is a zero-sum game in civic engineering.
The abutters, Ernest Piper and Peter and Eleanor Richardson, arrived at the meeting with vital historical context that the developer's initial surveys completely missed.
Which happens a lot. The Richardsons testified that a brook used to flow naturally behind the Mechanic Street houses, functioning as the area's primary stormwater drainage.
Decades ago, the city filled the brook in to stop residents from using it as an open sewer.
But burying a brook doesn't stop the hydrology. The stormwater still follows that historical topographical path, routinely flooding the backyards and basements of the adjacent homes.
The Richardsons put it bluntly on the public record.
Yeah.
We cannot have the situation made worse by this development.
And Mr. Piper added a critical piece of topographical friction. He noted that over the years, the 59 Main Street lot had been artificially elevated with fill dirt.
He argued that placing a massive new building with an impervious roof on that elevated lot would inevitably displace thousands of gallons of rainwater downhill directly into his property.
This is where the planning board forces the developer to rely on physics rather than promises.
The developer's agent, Acorn Engineering, couldn't just say, "Don't worry, we will install gutters."
Not at all. They were required by the board to prove mathematically that their development would achieve zero net increase in stormwater runoff.
Wait, zero increase? How do you mathematically prove that?
To do this, they had to model the site's fluid dynamics against the 2-year, 5-year, 25-year, and 100-year flood events.
Let's break down that terminology because it is crucial for anyone reading a municipal site plan. When an engineer talks about designing for a 100-year flood, they do not mean a storm that predictably happens exactly once every century, right?
No, it is a metric of probability. A 100-year flood event means a storm of such severe magnitude that it has a 1% chance of occurring in any given year.
And a 2-year flood event is a smaller, more common storm with a 50% chance of happening annually.
Exactly. The developer had to submit calculations proving that even during a catastrophic 1% probability storm, the volume and velocity of water leaving their property after the building was constructed would not exceed the flow that existed before they broke ground.
Achieving that requires highly specialized environmental engineering. You are taking thousands of square feet of absorbent soil and covering it with an impervious roof and asphalt parking.
So the water that used to soak into the ground now accelerates off the roof.
To neutralize this, Acorn Engineering designed a perimeter filtration system. The roof runoff is channeled into a trench filled with specific grades of stone and gravel.
This captures the water and allows it to percolate slowly into a perimeter under-drain pipe.
But the water still has to exit the pipe eventually. If you just point a high-capacity drainage pipe at the property line, the kinetic energy of the water will just carve a trench straight into the neighbor's yard, eroding their foundation.
Which is exactly what the neighbors were afraid of. So this is where the engineers had to implement what is called a level spreader.
A level spreader.
Yes. It is an ingenious piece of infrastructure. It takes the concentrated, high-velocity water exiting the under-drain pipe and forces it into a wide, perfectly flat, engineered trench.
And as the trench fills, The water spills over the perfectly level lip simultaneously across its entire width.
Exactly. It converts concentrated erosive pipe flow into a gentle, dispersed sheet flow. The water slowly travels over the ground surface into the existing neighborhood swale without causing erosion or localized flooding.
The board's scrutiny was so intense that the engineers actually had to map the square footage of the abutters' surrounding properties.
Yes, and include them in their pre-development and post-development fluid dynamic calculations to mathematically guarantee the entire neighborhood ecosystem was protected.
It is phenomenal, like the municipal immune system at work. The board isn't just asking if the building is aesthetically pleasing, they are demanding the exact cubic feet per second flow rates of rainwater during a statistically rare meteorological event.
They get deeply into the weeds.
Okay, the final friction point we see in these minutes is architectural and safety-based. Let's look at the 18 Elm Street project.
This was a 12-unit apartment building proposed by Backyard ADUs, acting on behalf of Levigen LLC.
The April 7th minutes document a startling admission from the applicant's representative, Chris Lee. He stated on the record that when his firm took over the project from a previous architect, the building, as it had been originally designed and approved, was legally not buildable.
Not buildable. That's a huge statement.
The financial and architectural realities of the municipal fire code forced them to drastically redesign the entire layout while desperately trying to maintain the same square footage.
The primary culprit here was fire separation code.
Right. When you are building in a dense urban environment, the proximity of your structure to the property line dictates the flammability of your building materials.
Because the physics of urban fires rely heavily on radiant heat transfer.
If a building catches fire, it emits massive amounts of thermal radiation.
And if the adjacent building is too close, that radiant heat will shatter its standard glass windows and ignite the interior without a single flame ever crossing the property line.
So to prevent entire city blocks from burning down, municipal building codes dictate strict setback distances.
If a developer wants to build right up against the property line, they are legally required to use highly specialized fire-resistant materials.
In the original 18 Elm Street design, the building was situated so close to the lot lines that the code required the installation of 1-hour fire-rated glazing for all the windows facing the abutters.
And 1-hour fire-rated glass is an incredibly specialized, multi-layered material. It's designed to withstand extreme thermal shock and physically block radiant heat.
It is astronomically expensive compared to standard tempered glass, isn't it?
It is. Mandating it for an entire side of a 12-unit apartment building completely destroyed the project's financial viability. It became totally cost prohibitive.
To save the project, the architects had to physically retreat. They redesigned the site plan, pushing the orientation of the building further back from the street and significantly further away from the rear lot line.
By increasing the physical distance between their structure and the neighboring properties, they reduced the radiant heat transfer risk,
which legally allowed them to downgrade from fire-rated glazing to standard affordable building materials.
But the redesign wasn't just about escaping fire codes, it was also about mitigating noise pollution for the rear abutters.
Right, because the initial blueprints called for the building's massive commercial air conditioning compressors to be mounted on the roof.
And rooftop compressors generate a constant low-frequency mechanical hum because low-frequency sound waves travel exceptionally well over open air. Placing them on a roof essentially broadcasts that hum over the entire surrounding neighborhood.
The rear abutters firmly objected to the introduction of constant mechanical noise.
As you would.
The developer had two choices: build an expensive, acoustically engineered screening wall around the rooftop units, or move the units entirely.
To appease the neighbors and secure approval, the developers entirely scrapped the rooftop HVAC plan.
They redesigned the mechanical system, opting to install much quieter individual mini-split units on the ground level, tucked right behind the building.
Because the rear abutters' properties only had doors facing the lower level of the new building, moving the noise source to the ground, utilizing physical barriers effectively neutralized the acoustic friction.
Every single one of these case studies, the cedar fences on Pleasant Street, the level spreaders on Main Street, the fire setbacks, and relocated air conditioners on Elm Street, proves that the Municipal Planning Board is an intensely rigorous gauntlet.
They do not merely facilitate meetings. They interrogate the math.
They debate whether a specific driveway needs to be 18 feet wide for a fire truck, or if a specific regulatory exemption legally permits it to be 16 feet wide.
They scrutinize the photometric lighting spillover. They trace the historical capacity of the municipal sewer laterals.
And the overarching lesson from all of these minutes is that public participation is the engine of that scrutiny.
Yes. When residents show up, not with generic anger, but with specific, well-researched, valid concerns about water tables, security protocols, or noise pollution, the board actually listens.
More importantly, the board translates those concerns into legally binding requirements that the developer's engineers must solve.
So we have mapped out the massive scale of the $22 million, 26-unit condo proposal at One Park Drive.
We have unpacked the structural engineering challenges of building over an active storefront.
We have analyzed the demographic and economic shift from seasonal tourism to year-round high-end residential impact.
We have highlighted the critical unknowns regarding parking, pricing, and construction disruption.
And we have thoroughly decoded how you, as a resident, can utilize the pre-application process to force a developer to answer those unknowns.
So the only remaining question is, what are you going to do with this information?
The future of any community is dictated by those who choose to participate in the process. The sheer magnitude of the One Park Drive proposal guarantees that it will alter the downtown skyline, permanently impact the local economy, and redefine the daily foot traffic of the waterfront.
But the granular details of how that impact manifests, where the cars park, how the construction dust is mitigated, how the utilities are integrated, are still entirely undecided.
They are waiting to be shaped by the public.
At the end of their reporting on this development, the Maine Mirror published a call to action that serves as the perfect directive for anyone listening today. They simply asked their readers, what questions do you believe deserve answers before this project moves ahead?
That is the foundation of civic engagement. You do not need a degree in civil engineering to demand a comprehensive construction traffic plan.
You do not need to be an architect to ask how a commercial bakery next door is expected to survive 2 years of heavy vibration and dust.
A strong, resilient local community is not a spontaneous occurrence. It is the direct result of transparent processes, informed public debate, and residents who are willing to endure the tedious mechanics of municipal government to demand accountability.
The pre-application phase is your opportunity to set the terms of that accountability.
Definitely.
I want to leave you with a broader thought to analyze as you watch this project and others like it move through the municipal machinery. It is the defining puzzle for almost every coastal town right now.
How does a historic community evolve to meet the undeniable economic demands of the modern era without erasing the specific, unique identity that made the town valuable in the first place?
Exactly. How do you build for the future while honoring the foundation you are building upon?
It is a delicate balance, and there is no universal blueprint for success. But informed, objective analysis of the facts is the first step toward finding the right equilibrium for your specific neighborhood.
Thank you so much for sitting down with us for this deep dive. Stay curious. Take the time to read through your local planning board agendas, research the friction points in your own community, and when the time comes, step up to the microphone at your local city hall. We'll catch you next time.